Good morning. Hope you're doing well on this Wednesday morning. You had a good night of rest last night. And looking forward to spending a couple minutes together here this morning as we get started with this day. Excited to share some truth from the Word, a word of encouragement for you today. Certainly was an encouragement to me this morning as we studied some of the things we're going to be looking at here. And I hope it will be to you as well as we get started here in just a moment. And so let's see who we've got with us here this morning. We're going to be in several places in the Bible this morning, and of course we'll take some time to pray together as well. We're on the sixth virus that we've been in this series on viruses and vaccines. We'll be on the sixth virus today, and I believe we're going to start. I'll have you go to Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10 is what I'll have you go to start if you'd like to turn over there with me to Luke chapter 10. Good morning, Brother John, Miss Carol, Grady, Miss Debbie, Miss Patty, Jenna, Miss Melody. Good to see you all on here in Ashton as well. Good to see you, man. You finished school yesterday. Good job, bud. You got a birthday coming up this week too, huh? I need to take you out to lunch for your birthday. If your mom will let me do it, we'll take you out sometime this week. Good morning, Mom. Good to see you on here as well. We're going to get started here in just a couple of minutes. We have a prayer request, a question, suggestion. Be sure to let me know in the comments here. We're going to go to Luke chapter 10, and then we'll go to Matthew chapter 6 for the devotion this morning. Had a good day of study yesterday. Enjoyed the rain early on this week, and really looking forward to, Lord willing, hopefully, being back in services this coming Sunday. And so we'll see. The county hasn't gotten the approval yet from the state to be able to roll forward with the next stage of the plan. I don't want to be too preemptive, but I do hope that we'll be able to have services either by this Sunday or the next. And so keep praying with me about that. We're going to go ahead and jump into our devotion here this morning, and I want to jump into what this virus is going to be. The virus we're going to look at this morning, the spiritual virus that can infect the body of Christ, and we're going to look at today is worry. And it's a big one, especially right now with all the stuff that we've been going through. Worry, or we could call it anxiety. And I want to think about this virus of worry here for just a little bit this morning. And, anxiety, according to Webster's 1828 dictionary, it's defined as concern respecting some event, future or uncertain, which disturbs the mind and keeps it in a state of painful uneasiness. That's a pretty profound definition of anxiety. And a lot of us find ourselves continually in that state of uncertain or painful uneasiness. Just literally keeps us up at night, literally causes us some measure of emotional or even for some people physical pain. And so I think it's important that we understand that this is it's a sin. It's a sin that can infect the body. It's a spiritual virus that we need to be aware of. And I think especially with all the things that are going on right now, many of us are culpable to this spiritual virus of worry, of anxiety, of being anxious. There are a lot of examples of worry in the Bible. Some of them we would tend to think were more validated than others. For example, in 2 Kings chapter 5, we've got King Jehoram, who was sent a letter by the king of Syria. And the king of Syria sent the general of his army to him and said, I want you to heal this man of his leprosy. Well, the king of Israel, he rent his clothes. He was worried. He was anxious. I mean, he didn't know what was going to happen. Was war coming to his kingdom? I mean, how in the world could he heal a man from the disease of leprosy? He had no power to do that. Anyways, the prophet Elisha contacted him and said, send him to me, so they'll know there's a prophet in Israel. And in that situation, we look at King Jehoram and say, you know what, that probably would have been a little worried too. But then you got other cases of worry in the Bible, like Martha. And that's where I want to take you to Luke chapter number 10. And let's look at how Martha worried, because I think this is the way Martha worried here tends to be the way that most of us tend to struggle with this thing of worry. So I'm in Luke chapter 10 and verse 38. Familiar story. The Bible says, "Now it came to pass as they went, that he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, which sat at Jesus' feet and heard his words. But Martha was cumbered about much serving, and came to him and said, Lord, dost thou not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me. And Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things." She was worried, anxious, and really, literally troubled about many things. And he told her, "But one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her." Martha was literally worried, anxious about all of her house chores, about her business of hospitality, about her ministry. And whether it's major things or minor things, we tend to worry about all sorts of things. And we see examples of that all throughout the scriptures. And I'm going to give you some examples of some things the Bible addresses that we tend to worry about. We tend to worry about our provision, our needs. So that's where I want you to go to Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6, we're going to look at a couple of these in Matthew chapter 6. We worry about the bills getting paid, about keeping clothes on our back, about making the house payment, keeping a roof over our heads, about how are we gonna have a job that's gonna give us the provision we need by this time next year. We worry about all kinds of things. Matthew 6 and verse 25. Jesus said, "Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor yet for your body what shall you put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment?" And then he proceeds in Matthew 6 to talk about how he clothes the flowers of the field, and he cares for the fowls of the air, and he feeds them. And he says, "Are you not much better than they?" The Lord makes very clear we worry about so many things, especially about the things that we would consider to be the essentials of life, of being able to exist in this world. And yet God tells us, you don't need to worry about those things. I will take care of you. And yet we do consume our thoughts with worrying about those things. Matthew 6 and verse 34, Jesus said, "Take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof." Another thing we worry about is the future. Well, what's going to happen tomorrow? What about next school year for my kids? What about when my kids graduate? What about retirement? How am I going to get to retire? How am I going to make it in those years? And I see people talk about all different types of things, and they let their life be consumed with worry about the future. So we worry about our needs. We worry about the future. Hey, here's another one. We worry about our acceptance. Proverbs chapter 29. Proverbs chapter 29. I'll show you what I mean here about acceptance. Proverbs 29 and verse 25. The Bible says, "The fear of man bringeth a snare, but whosoever putteth his trust in the Lord shall be safe." Boy, the fear of man is a trap. It's a snare. And we really are, many of us, so worried about what other people are going to think. Well, what are my coworkers going to think? What's my mother going to think about this? What's my spouse going to think about this? What do my kids think if I make this decision? What will the church family think if I make this decision? And we allow ourselves to be so dominated by a fear of what other people are going to think. A worry about acceptance. We want to be liked. We want to be accepted. And probably, especially during this coronavirus crisis, I think a lot of people have been really worried about death, about eternity, about what if I get this? What if I die? What happens next? And for those of us who are Christians, certainly we have no reason to fear death, but that's something that a lot of people are ruled by. They're worried about facing death. And so we have all of these things that people worry about. Here's the thing about worry. Most of the things that we worry about never happen. You ever notice that? We keep ourselves up all night, and then it never even comes to fruition. Everything we thought we needed to worry about. And that's just the funny thing about us as human beings. We always like to go to the worst case scenario, and sometimes worst case does happen. I understand that, but most of the time, the things we worry about, they never happen. And all worry does is it weighs you down. That's all it does. When you contract the virus of worry, it consumes your heart, your mind, and it just weighs you down for today. Proverbs chapter 12. Go back to Proverbs chapter 12. The Bible talks about this. Proverbs 12 and verse number 25. The Bible says, heaviness in the heart of man maketh it stoop. It makes you heavy. When you have this heaviness, this worry, this anxiety, it makes your heart stoop. It brings you down. Adrian Rogers always used to say, worry is pulling tomorrow's cloud over today's sunshine. Another person said, worry never robs tomorrow of its sorrow. It only saps today of its joy. And that's so true. And yet when we contract this virus, the spiritual virus of worry, boy, it dominates our life. And it robs us of what we could have today if we would just not make ourselves susceptible to this. And so that's the virus, worry, anxiety. What's the vaccine? I would say the vaccine is faith. You want to know how you can overcome? You want to know what the antidote is, the vaccine for the virus of worry? It's putting your trust in God. It's faith in God, best expressed through prayer. And this is important for us to understand, because the only solution for a case of anxiety is a good dose of faith. Jesus said in John 14 and verse 1, let not your heart be troubled. Don't be worried. Then he said, if you believe in God, believe also in me. What he's saying is, hey, why do you need to be worried when you can trust me instead? There is no reason to fear when God is on our side. And so faith is the vaccine for worry. My favorite definition of faith is that faith is not being able to see, but believing the word of the one who can. The things that we worry about, we usually worry about them because we don't know how they're going to work out. But when we put our trust in God's word, we can know, even though we might not know how it will all work out, we can know it will all work out for our good and for his glory, because we're resting in the promise of God's word. That's the essence of faith. That's the solution of worry. So whenever those feelings of worry want to rise up in my spirit, I can make a choice to say, God, instead of worrying about what I can't control, I'm going to choose to trust that you are in control and that you are working the situations that seem to make me want to worry out for your glory and for my good and the good of those whom I love. And so that's so important. Hebrews 11:1 says faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And that's the essence of what faith is. Now I'll say this, the greatest expression of faith that you and I can ever make is prayer. That's the greatest expression of faith. Of faith is just pray. Prayer is a declaration of dependence upon God. It is saying, God, I can't control the circumstances. I can't do this on my own. I have no way of going about the circumstance I'm facing except for giving it to you. And that's the best thing I can do. And so prayer is a declaration of dependence. It is literally the best expression of faith that you and I could ever make. It's just to pray. And so that's why the Bible teaches us all throughout the New Testament, in particular, in many places in the Old Testament as well, that when we are feeling anxious, the answer is to pray. Let's go to a couple places where the Bible talks about this. Philippians chapter 4. Philippians chapter 4. Go over there with me to Philippians chapter 4. In Philippians chapter 4 and verse number 6, the Bible says, be careful or worried for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Hey, this verse from when we coined the phrase, turn every care into a prayer. Turn every worry into a prayer. Every care into a prayer. 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 7, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. And it's a really wonderful thing to be able to pray to a God who cares for us. That gives us confidence to come, to turn to him in faith with our anxiety, with our cares. And so you will be empowered to live at peace, even in the face of the worrisome circumstances of life, when your focus and your reliance is ultimately upon Jesus. I think of Peter. When he was in the midst of the storm on the Sea of Galilee, Jesus walked to him on the water. And Peter said, "If it's you, Lord, bid me to come to you." Peter stepped out of the boat and walked on water. And so long as he had his eyes on Jesus, he had no concern about the tumultuous waves that were rolling about him, even as he was walking on top of the water. But boy, just as soon as he took his eyes off of Jesus, that's when he began to be overcome by the waves, by the circumstances that surround him. And we will be overcome by the virus of worry when we get our eyes off of Jesus. Boy, if you keep your eyes on him, even when all the storm around you is raging, he can keep you at perfect peace. Isaiah chapter 26 and verse 3, thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed upon thee, because he trusts in thee. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. We've been singing that a lot throughout this whole trial. And I tell you, that really is the answer for the virus of worry, is just putting your faith, your trust in Jesus, expressing it through prayer continually. Sometimes you pray and then 5 minutes later you want to pick the worry back up. And then you got to pray again. But just keep giving it to God. Keep giving it to the Lord until he gives you a breakthrough. That's the best way I can encourage you with those things. And the last thing I'd say about this thing of worry is, hey, learn to trust in the sovereignty of God. A lot of circumstances we go through in life don't make sense. And we can't really make sense of them. But we know the promises of God's word. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. God knows where he's taking you. And the thoughts that he's thinking toward you are thoughts of peace and not of evil. Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and that are called according to his purpose. God knows what he's doing. Just trust him. Just trust him. And if you struggle with anxiety, if you've contracted this spiritual virus of worry, anxiety, today the solution is to take a good dose of prayer and turn to God in faith. And that will chase out that worry out of your system. And so I hope that's an encouragement to you today. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. And today you don't have to live in fear. You don't have to live in worry. Cast all your care upon him because he cares for you. And you can overcome that virus of worry. And so I hope that's an encouragement to you here today. I want to say hi to a couple more of you. And then we'll take prayer requests and pray together this morning. And let me see here. Going back a little bit. Miss Trudy and Ed, good morning to both of you. And Jennifer, good to have you with us. And Miss Ann Brooks, good morning to you. And Miss Margie, Miss Gloria, good morning to you. Glad to have you with us. Miss Angie and your family, good to see you with us here this morning as well. And so great. Well, I've enjoyed being able to say hi to all of you in the morning. If we can't see each other face to face, this is a temporary substitute, but I'm glad we're able to spend this time together. I do think it's okay for me to make this prayer request public now. Please pray for the Ganas family, Gary and Susie Ganas, also for Cassie and Eiler and Peyton. Eiler and Peyton are the children that are involved in this situation, but anyways, Gary and Sue, we've known them for a while at our church. We love them dearly. And their son, Jeff, went home to be with the Lord. And so we just need to pray for comfort for the family and for his kids especially. And I just ask that you would pray for the Gadas family during this time. And then Miss Angie here has also asked us to pray for a 7-year-old young one, Jace, who has relapsed with neuroblastoma. And so we'll pray for Jace today. Of course, we're praying for Alice, Miss Trudy's sister, And I know there's several other requests that have been on our minds. Bob Liebert, Lord willing, is supposed to come home soon. If he's not already home, I think it's this Friday he's supposed to come home. And so keep praying for Bob. And that would be be an encouragement to him, I know. Also, pray for wisdom for our leadership team. We're going to be making some decisions about reopening the church doors for in-house services. Very excited about that. Want to do it right. Want to it's a hard balance sometimes between Romans chapter 13 and honoring our civil authorities, and Acts chapter 5 and verse 29, where it says we ought to obey God rather than man. God has commanded us to assemble together as believers, and we don't want to be unwise with that decision. We want to protect our congregation, but I believe we're to a point where we understand enough about this thing where we could assemble and do so in a safe way, but still have that encouragement together as God's people. So just pray for our deacons, me, and our leaders as we are making some of these decisions regarding these things. Good morning, Miss Therese, and we're continuing in prayer for you, for your healing, and good to have you on here with us here this morning. Well, let's take a minute and let's pray together, and then we'll go about our day. Father, we come before you this morning, thanking you for the fact that we can turn to you in faith, and knowing that when we come before your throne, we can come with confidence, and all the promises of your word, we can stand upon them, and every worry, every anxiety we face in life, we can turn over to you, and you're well able to handle it. And Lord, we thank you for that. And today I thank you for just that confidence we can have in you. I pray, Lord, that you'll be with several requests. We pray for the Ganas family for comfort, and Lord, just guide them through this time. Let them relish in the memories of a wonderful life lived by Jeff. I pray, Lord, that you will also be with this young one, Jace. Pray for healing and wisdom for the doctors on his behalf. I also want to lift up to you Retha Thompson with her cancer, Bob Liebert as he is healing. Think of Thomas Anderson with surgery this next Monday. Pray that would go through, and that you'd help him to get better with his back issues there. Lord, I do also want to ask you just give us wisdom with making decisions as a church, and how you want us to go forward with gatherings. And thank you for your sustaining grace through this trial. Also lift up Miss Therese to you, pray for her healing and continued recovery. And Lord, I know there are many other requests. I pray for wisdom for our civil leaders, and favor, Lord, for the things that they're trying to put in motion with opening our county back up. Be with those who are working as first responders and essential workers, and our small businesses and businesses all over this community who are struggling through this time. Just pray for your sustainment for them. And I pray, God, that you would help us to learn what you are teaching us, desiring to teach us through this trial. Give us a good day today. Help us to live it for you and your glory. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Awesome. Well, it's good to spend some time with you this morning. We'll look forward to seeing you tonight at 6:30 for our Bible study, and hope you can make it for that. And until then, have a great day.